Hello, welcome to episode 155 of the Book Binge, where this week we're doing yet another series review where I'm talking about multiple books at once. This is going to be the Border Trilogy by Cormac McCarthy, an author that up to this point I've reviewed twice on the channel. I believe one of those times was with extreme displeasure and one of those was with extreme pleasure. One of those books I really liked, one of them I really did not. But I did next read these three books, and this review is going to cover my thoughts on all three of them in one way or another. As for, clarifying a little bit, No Country for Old Men and The Road were the two McCarthy books that I have read previous to this series. I didn't really like The Road, but I really liked No Country for Old Men. So how did I feel about this trilogy coming off of that? What is my track record with McCarthy sitting at up to this point? Well, let's just say it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but let's start off like normal with the good that I think can be found in the Border Trilogy. Basically, as a whole, I really like the setting of the trilogy near the border of the United States and Mexico. The three stories all take place around this area, and the atmosphere of the setting did actually work for me surprisingly well after, say, I didn't really like the setting of The Road very much, or that didn't really connect with me. But it also isn't horribly surprising because the setting of No Country for Old Men is pretty similar, and that setting it did actually work for me. So the fact that this one did actually worked pretty well. The time period was also pretty interesting. After No Country for Old Men was a little bit more of a modern story, this one's a little bit more historically based, I guess you could say. It's not like based on a true story or anything like that, but it is based on a little bit of an older time period. And that, it actually built a pretty good atmosphere that I definitely commend McCarthy for managing to achieve in a couple of the books. But a couple of the things that I broadly enjoyed between the whole trilogy overall were a few of the things. Let's talk about the dialogue, character motivation, capturing the human spirit, and the structure. So I'm going to talk about all these individually. First off, the dialogue. Character interactions and dialogue were actually usually really good in this book. This was also something that I generally liked in No Country for Old Men, did not connect with in The Road. This trilogy, broadly speaking, really worked on a character interaction and dialogue level, even in the books that I was a little bit less hype about. The books that I was a little bit more middling on, will say my favorite moments generally involved character interactions and dialogue. In All the Pretty Horses, you have the love interest's father and great aunt in All the Pretty Horses that interact with John Grady Cole as the main character. Those moments were really good, the best part of that book easily. Interactions like, say, that with the mountain man, the old mountain man recluse person in The Crossing was another really standout moment for me. As far as character motivation as well, not just the interactions, but motivation were actually pretty compelling overall. In All the Pretty Horses, the motivation was primarily adventure. I really liked that. In The Crossing, it was like a sort of moral drive, a just ethical, personal drive to accomplish something, or to complete a task, you could say, for that character. And then generally the connection of characters was the main driving factor in Cities of the Plain, and was the thing that I respect the most about that entry. Like I said before, this trilogy generally captures the human spirit pretty well. Friendship in All the Pretty Horses is a big standout. Integrity and love in The Crossing was a standout, and also foolishness in Cities of the Plain was a big standout. So McCarthy definitely covers a lot of terrain in this trilogy as far as humanity is concerned, and is something that I definitely commend him for managing to achieve. The structure of the trilogy was also pretty interesting. This is one where The Crossing and All the Pretty Horses are separate and independent. You can read these independently of each other. If you wanted to only read The Crossing, you could do that. If you wanted to only read All the Pretty Horses, you could do that as well. If, however, you wanted to read Cities of the Plain, you sort of combine both of the two storylines. And well, I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later. Didn't fully work for me, actually, but generally speaking, you have one book following one character and storyline, the next book following a different character and storyline, and the third book following both characters to some degree and having a storyline based on that. Regardless of the execution, I liked the idea that McCarthy had involving the structure. But because this is McCarthy, there are definitely some things that I will put into the bad. There were plenty of not memorable happenings in this book. Cities of the Plain had a ton that just went in one ear, right out the other, that I just did not connect with in any way, shape, or form. This book, like, this book was not one that I outright hated so much as I just was very apathetic. I didn't care about anything that was happening. I think the general execution of the story just didn't work for some reason, so I generally found the book very unmemorable. McCarthy's general style of slice of life and meanderings in the story as well doesn't fully work depending on the instance. I largely liked this kind of slower material in The Crossing. A lot of other people, it's like the thing that they like the least about The Crossing. And it is one of the things that I like the least about All the Pretty Horses, and one of the things that everybody else likes the most about the book, at least by, the people that I was generally reading along with. So, like there's a kind of give and take as far as those are concerned. When things weren't good with the Border Trilogy, they were just really boring. Like I said, Cities of the Plain, I just did not connect with, so I found that very boring. When I wasn't connecting with what was happening in All the Pretty Horses, I was generally just bored. So, like, it's not like everything that I didn't like in these books were outright bad, as I would argue was the case in The Road. It's just that they weren't very memorable. They weren't very actively enjoyable, and so we're just, eh. Also, action sequences in the trilogy are pretty bad. I would say rescuing the girl that happens in the middle of The Crossing is like the exception of this rule, but like the gunfight at the end of All the Pretty Horses is maligned even amongst fans of the book. They say like easily it's the weakest part to them. The epilogue of Cities of the Plain is one of these sequences, and it's also just real goofy and went completely over my head, and even other people think it's a little bit goofy. It's certain people's favorite part of the whole trilogy, but it is still goofy nonetheless. And as for the ugly, let's say relationships and emotional moments in the series ranged from very, very good to very, very apathy inducing for me. These things are handled extremely well sometimes, really poorly other times. All the Pretty Horses had the trio for part of it. Once broken up and only ever two at a time, it's mediocre, but the trio as a whole I really liked. The Crossing had Billy and the Wolf, Billy with his brother, fleeting moments of Billy with other people. All of those moments are fantastic. For me, one of my absolute favorite parts of McCarthy as a whole were a lot of the stuff found in The Crossing. Cities of the Plain had, well, it had what it had, most of which I've forgotten at this point, but it did have a couple moments that, like, you understand Billy and, not Billy, John Grady and the character he is chasing throughout most of the story is like the standout thing that I do remember from the book, because most everything else I've forgotten. But it is one of the things that I respect, one of the things that I feel like I should have connected with a little bit more. The Crossing is a tale of tragedy that destroyed me, and I really liked it for that. Cities of the Plain is a tale of tragedy that did nothing at all for me. All the Pretty Horses is generally a fun adventure romp that I found boring sometimes but really compelling other times. And also, as far as Cities of the Plain is concerned, the epilogue of the book, which is kind of an epilogue of the whole trilogy in some degree, is generally considered the best part of the trilogy by plenty of other people. It's arguably my least favorite part, so your mileage may vary as far as the different books are concerned. But let's actually talk about my ranking of the trilogy. And if you've been, following along with what I've been saying over the last couple sections, you probably have a pretty good guess of how I feel about these books. My number one spot goes to The Crossing. This was one that I really liked and almost like as much as No Country for Old Men in certain regards, although it is a tiny bit long-winded at a couple points. All the Pretty Horses sits right in the middle. It's the one McCarthy that I haven't really decided whether I like or not. I have a couple books that I really like, a couple that I really don't, and then this one's just right in the middle of like, I don't know whether I like it or not. There were things about it I really liked, but also other things that I just did not care about. Cities of the Plain I didn't like at all. It just did not connect with me to any degree, so I can't say I actively enjoyed anything about it. And I think that is actually a real tragedy. I do want to say, like, I wish I liked Cities of the Plain. I think I should have liked Cities of the Plain. By all means, what it was talking about, I should have actually connected with John Grady quite a bit in certain aspects throughout various points of the book. And there was one moment that I feel like I should have reacted to emotionally, like any of the scenes from The Crossing that really had me reacting emotionally. but it just didn't. And I think that's a real shame because Cities of the Plain could have been really good for me if those things actually connected. Unfortunately, they did not actually connect. So for my personal recommendations of the trilogy, do I think you should read the whole thing? Well, that's kind of debatable. Most people like All the Pretty Horses a lot more than I do. Plenty of other people who I've talked to think that this is their favorite of the trilogy. So, like, if you want to give this a shot, absolutely give it a shot if you think it interests you. The Crossing, I love. It's generally the most popular of the trilogy as far as I have seen, but it is one that some people largely dislike because it's one of McCarthy's longer books. I think it's his second longest book ever. So like it does meander a little bit, it does get a little bit long-winded at times, so like certain people dislike that. I do think it is broadly, like I said, the most popular of the trilogy. I definitely recommend trying this one if you're interested in McCarthy personally, as far as the themes of tragedy are concerned. So if you want to try either one of those two books, go ahead and do so. Cities of the Plain, however, I think is pretty much bad. It is memorable almost only in how unmemorable it is, and there's like 5 scenes, if that, I remember from the whole book. One of those, as I've mentioned, should have wrecked me but did nothing. It is the least popular of the trilogy as far as general consensus comes down to as well. A lot of people, even on other random forums on the internet, like ask questions about Cities of the Plain, wondering why it feels so weird compared to the other books and other McCarthy novels in general. What it comes down to for me is if you, like me, don't love All the Pretty Horses, I don't see any real reason why you'll really like Cities of the Plain. I mean, I feel like I should have liked Cities of the Plain, but the execution just didn't work. So, like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. It might be part of why I did not connect with Cities of the Plain was the fact that I didn't really like All the Pretty Horses a ton. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't really like it either. I think if you want to do any of this as an immersive or audio experience, it's also a mixed bag there as well, because that's how I did it. Let's just say Frank Muller as the narrator for these two books, All the Pretty Horses and Cities of the Plain, did not do a very good job. I found the narration to be pretty flat and mediocre and largely unenjoyable, and apparently his Spanish pronunciation is pretty not great as well compared to Richard Poe's narration of The Crossing. I definitely recommend doing this one on audio or immersive if you want to, because Poe's narration is very immersive and made me consider doing the audiobook for East of Eden when I was reading that, solely because it was Richard Poe narrating it. So like I really liked Richard Poe here. I did not like Frank Muller narrating those other two books. So like if that influences your decision on reading this trilogy, have at it. I think personally that you should read The Crossing regardless. I think you should give that a shot if you're interested in McCarthy. I would say give All the Pretty Horses a shot because a lot of people really like that one. I definitely have a hard time recommending Cities of the Plain, however. I mean, if you're going to read at least 2 books of the trilogy at that point, like might as well read the third, especially since it's definitely the shortest of the trilogy, but like I do have a really hard time recommending it. But if you have read this trilogy or any entries within it, let me know what you thought in the comments below. I'm curious, how would you rank the trilogy? I want to see like as many people's, rankings of these 3 books as I can possibly see, because it does seem to be a pretty mixed bag as far as things are concerned. Just as McCarthy in general, there are a lot of different opinions on this trilogy. Those rankings are diverse. The thoughts on individual entries are diverse and different, so definitely let me know. McCarthy's track record continues its trend with me. As of the time that I completed the trilogy, I loved 2 of the 5 books. I hated 2 of the 5 books, and I was really just kind of in the middle with 1 of the 5 books. As of the time that I'm recording this, there is now a 6th book in there, but that review will be coming next month. So, if you want to see my review of Outer Dark by Cormac McCarthy and where that kind of falls in this list of 6 books, stick around and check that video out. Otherwise, I'll be back this Thursday with a video discussing mood reading versus TBR reading and what a handful of you potential viewers thought about it, and inquiring what you guys thought about that as well. So if you want to interact with the comments of this video, go and check out that video when it's out on Thursday. Interact with that video. I will see you guys in the next video regardless.